There we go. Good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome back to the lab. We have once again arrived at the weekend and your weekly source for the full rundown of everything you need to know within the Indoor Football League. If you're here for the recap of the week that was, the preview of the week that is to come, or are curious about some of the other great goings on in the Great League, I am glad to assure you that you are in the right place. Cutting it a little bit close to kickoff for this week's games, but nonetheless, it is once again Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. I am so glad that you're able to take time from your busy afternoon, or maybe still morning, depending on where you are, and talking some IFL ball with me. For those of you who are new to the Indoor Football League or to this channel in particular, I want to warmly welcome you aboard. And once again, very glad that you're here. My name is Alex Schuberth. I do some work as the lead IFL contributor for a sports forum site called Sports Coast to Coast, which is a Pacific Northwest-based sports forum site which specializes specifically in the coverage of the Indoor Football League and its 14 member teams specifically. We have updated team rosters week to week. We've got previews of all the games, recaps of all the games, analysis on just about any angle that you can come up with, whether it be a team-specific thing or a league-specific thing. Breaking news, whole 9 yards, or in our case, 50. So I've linked the forum website below in the description. It is there where you'll also find the written version of my piece that I put together. I put that out there last night, and the link to that is also down below. So no excuse not to go check out the forum in some way, shape, or form. It is a fantastic resource if you're looking to enhance your fandom within the Indoor Football League. So that said, we're going to jump right on to it here. I am a little bit of a time crunch this afternoon / evening, so we're going to try to blast through things as quickly yet as efficiently as we can here. So week 6, we have passed the quarter pole of the Indoor Football League season. So last week, we had all 14 teams in action at the same time for the first time all year. So that's 7 games to write 7 opportunities for incredible stories. We had games come right down to the wire. We had our first overtime game of the season. So we will go through each of those 7 games and recap them in just a little bit. Add those results to our season-long trackers to see what is hot and what is not in terms of straight betting, parlay betting, money line spreads and totals, all of that as we do each week, where our goal there is to find some pretty interesting trends that you might not otherwise see without taking a deeper dive into it. So once we recap the week that was, figure out how those results play into the season averages overall, we're going to go right into predicting week 6. All 7 games. We're going to do those and then put together our 3-leg parlay, which we're going to win one, guys. We're going to win one. Bear with me. All right, so a 5-game Saturday began in Albuquerque with the Wranglers taking on the Chupacabras. This was a battle of 0-2 teams, both looking for their first win. At the onset here, it looked like New Mexico was firmly in command. They absolutely held Northern Arizona completely without an answer throughout much of the first half. They were up by 11 until a last-second Hail Mary to end the half successfully connected from Ramon Atkins-Frazier to Marlon Cook. That spark ended up kickstarting a huge Northern Arizona run of 23-3. They flipped an 11-point deficit into a 9-point advantage entering the fourth quarter. The Chupacabras, dazed as they were, they recentered themselves and they put themselves right back into the equation. Getting a touchdown to cut the game within 2, wound up with a fumble recovery with about 6 minutes to go, and then right at that 1-minute warning, Jerome Johnson working his magic once again delivering a game-winning touchdown pass. And then the Chupacabra defense, tasked to stay strong in the dying minute, they get an interception on a deep pass by Gregory Dent Jr., and that solidified New Mexico's first win as the Chupacabras franchise. And ironically enough, their first win comes in the same fashion as the last win for their predecessors, the Duke City Gladiators. Home win over Northern Arizona, 47-40. That got our week off to a good start with our Chupacabra -2.5 spread bet. Out in Fishers, the impressive Freight hosting the Iowa Barnstormers. The formula that the Freight used in their previous game against Arizona, just smash mouth football. Guess what? They went back to it again, and they executed about dang near perfectly. Touchdowns on basically every meaningful possession. Dominic Roberto, Josiah King, and Felix Harper combining for, I think it was over 140 or 150 rushing yards between the three of them in this game. The Barnstormers just simply could not penetrate that Fishers front line at all. And by the time that Iowa figured out what was going on, the offense maybe tried to make some plays that weren't there. The Freight slamming the door defensively on several occasions. This was just another masterclass at home for the Fishers Freight. They wind up with the convincing win, 63-33. Our underbet crashing because of a last-minute garbage time touchdown by the Iowa Barnstormers. I wonder where we've seen that before. But in any event, Fishers is rolling. Iowa still soul-searching. In Moline, we had Quad City back at home hosting the undefeated Green Bay Blizzard. The Steam Wheelers off a 1-2 start, looking to recalibrate things on their end against their hated rival. The Blizzard had success at Vibrant Arena the last couple times they went, but this particular time, the start was rather slow for the Green Bay Blizzard. They only had a limited number of possessions in that first half. They didn't end up translating any of those into touchdowns. In fact, all 8 of their first half points were by the foot of Andrew Mevis. Not enough to take a halftime lead, though, as the Steam Wheelers ended the half with 3 straight touchdowns to make it 24-8 at the break. By the second half, we got both teams trading blows at that point. Green Bay, with Liam Thompson and Terrell Carey pacing the Blizzard offense from that point onward. They did their part, but unfortunately for the Blizzard, they just ran into a buzzsaw with the Steam Wheelers, who saw some more of their role players come in and contribute heavily. There was Jared Ware Jr. having his most successful game on the ground, Kevin Rudd with multiple touchdowns, and Jordan Vesey coming up with a handful of impactful plays as well. So at the last minute of the game, with Green Bay down by 15, it was another one of those deep ball, hope and a prayer, similar to what Northern Arizona faced in their game against New Mexico. But just like in that one, an interception by Kevin Ransom Jr. of the Steam Wheelers ended up putting this one on ice. The final score, Steam Wheelers 51, Blizzard 36. There was one missed extra point in that second half that ultimately proved to be the difference with our bet of over 87.5. Unfortunately, with that, we missed out on our bet by that dreaded half-point hook. We move now to the desert, where we had the Arizona Rattlers back at home hosting the San Antonio Gunslingers. This one was a pretty stifling defensive contest in the early going. In fact, the teams put together combined for 3 turnovers in the first 3 possessions. So a little bit hairy of a start for both offenses there, but it was a game that was pretty close in the first half, believe it or not. Arizona up 14-10 at the half. The Rattlers making a little bit of a move to start the second half. They get a couple straight touchdowns. San Antonio comes back with a touchdown of their own. They get a fumble recovery, touchdown of their own. All of a sudden, they're back within 3 with all sorts of life. But Max Myler, Ron Brown Jr., Trey Odoms Dukes, that offense is inevitable. They end up getting another 2-touchdown run. The defense slams the door shut from that point onward, basically. And Arizona might not have been the most impressive win that we've seen from them, but it's still a win nonetheless. They advanced to 2-1. San Antonio down to 0-2, thanks to the 44-31 outcome at Desert Diamond Arena. Last game of Saturday wound up being one of the most topsy-turvy games of the season so far. It was San Diego on the road against the Tucson Sugar Skulls. The upstarts in Tucson looking for a pretty eye-opening win against a playoff team from a season ago. The start was not that great for the home team, though. There were multiple empty drives, multiple turnovers, the back-breaking one of which was a strip sack fumble recovery by the strike force. By that point, San Diego's halftime lead, 35-14. It seemed like they were going to cruise right along in this game. They got the kickoff to start the second half, but then those turnover problems started popping up again, and to the Sugar Skulls' credit, they capitalized big on them. In fact, by, I believe, the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter, they had turned what was a 21-point hole into a 1.35-34 lead, with all the momentum in the building, destined to carry them to another 20-plus point comeback victory. The strike force, though, they had other ideas. They recovered, got a couple of touchdown possessions, put themselves ahead by 6. Last drive of the game, Tucson must score a touchdown to, at worst, extend the game. They get up to around San Diego's 14-yard line, I believe, but they could proceed no further on a few incomplete passes to close out what wound up being the game-losing drive for the Sugar Skulls. So they fought hard, but in the end, that 21-point hole, just a tad bit too much to overcome. With San Diego, the lone road team of the slate to take a win, 48-42 at Tucson Arena to put San Diego at a 2-1 record, and Tucson tumbling down a little bit to 1-2. On Sunday, we kicked off the final day of the weekend with the Tulsa Oilers heading to the Kia Center playing the Orlando Pirates. And this was for Orlando, their first game under head coach Rod Windsor after the sudden departure of Rob Keefe. At least for the offense, there was no noticeable downtick as a result of that coaching change. Paxton DeLaurent, as impressive as ever. He turned in, I believe, his first turnover-free game of the season. So Tulsa ahead for much of the contest thanks to a record-shattering day through the air by TJ Edwards, who wound up with over 300 yards with his arm in the game. So he was incredibly impressive, as were Jermaine Smith and Spencer Tiers. But Orlando, they've arguably been the most clutch team in the league this season. When they needed plays out of their defense, they were able to get those incompletions on third down. I think they ended up with the third down sack somewhere along the lines as well. They got the couple of stops that they needed. The Pirates down by 4 with about a minute to go. Again, having to rely on Paxton DeLaurent, not too dissimilar from their previous week's game against Quad City. And pretty much like that one, DeLaurent came through with the play, a 7-yard touchdown run, put the Pirates up by 3 with just seconds to go on the clock. The Oilers putting out Bailey Hale for a 49-yard field goal attempt to tie the game, force overtime. He does get it to tie it at 55 apiece, take us to the extra frame. Unfortunately for the rookie kicker, his efforts went all for naught, as the Oilers were stopped on 3 consecutive downs. They actually moved backwards on their drive thanks to a couple of penalties and loss of yardage play. So while Tulsa's offense struggled on overtime, the Pirates needed one play to get the game winner. It was the 20-yard pass from DeLaurent to Thomas Owens, who had 4 touchdowns on the game, turning back the clock a little bit for the veteran. I honestly thought it was going to be tough for the Pirates to come up with a more thrilling game than what they gave us last week, but they certainly fit the bill on this one. Final score, Orlando stays undefeated at 3-0 with a 61-55 overtime win. Obviously, our underpick of 84.5, not particularly close. Amidst a really hot stretch of league-wide overs, which we'll get to in just a little bit. We wrap up our Week 5 recaps with Jacksonville at Vegas. And this game was Vegas' home opener. They got to raise their championship banner in front of their faithful. They had a bunch of celebratory promotions at Lee's Family Forum. And those celebrations kept going on as this game progressed. It began initially with what could have been a Jacksonville touchdown had it not been for a successful challenge by Vegas for a false start by the Sharks on that play. It wiped the touchdown off the board. The Sharks couldn't muster any points from that drive from that point on, and I believe that really set the tone for how this game went. The Nighthawks putting in one of their signature performances, Jaden DeLaura, Josh Tomas, Quentin Randolph, just running around the Sharks defense all night long. 7 touchdowns. They get a pick 6 touchdown late in the first half as well. And it was another one of those games where the Nighthawks got themselves out ahead early by multiple possessions and pretty much rode the offense to hold that advantage from there on out. So a tough loss for the Jacksonville Sharks, their first of the season, but it comes by margin of 54-43 against the Nighthawks. We had taken the Sharks at plus 3.5. Just couldn't get the defense to go our way, though, from the vantage point of Jacksonville. But another solid performance from the reigning champs. So that is the path that Week 5 took. We had one of our worst weeks in the series history with just 2 wins, although it should be noted that 4 of those came by 8 points or fewer. So aside from that Tulsa-Orlando game, which was a pretty bad misread, we were 1 or 2 defining plays away from scraping away some of those losses and turning them into wins. So, like I said, 2-5 record for Week 5. Obviously, looking to bounce back from that. Our net profit, net loss is not looking particularly great, although some of our mortal Megamax bets, which have won 3 in a row, are doing wonders for that weighted method, essentially increasing the result compared to the flat method by 1.5 units right there. Our bet type result records so far, the one thing that stands out, we have not cashed an under yet. Perhaps picking them at the wrong times with the games going over by a ton in the recent going here. So, like I said, we'll talk more about that once we get to some of the league-wide trends, but that was the story of Week 5 of 26 in the Indoor Football League. Our parlay, guess what? It went 2 of 3. Got the good start with the Chupacabras on the money line. The Freight covering as 16.5-point favorites. Not easy to do in any form of football. And, of course, last leg, shortest odds of the 3 on the board, winds up crashing the entire thing. The Blizzard, slow start, Steamwheeler staying out ahead. It was that 51-36 win by Quad City over Green Bay that ultimately robbed us of that first parlay win of the year. So still trying to piece together those 3 winning picks, but again, our goal is at least 4, and we really want to be banking that first parlay win sooner rather than later here. So we'll see if we're able to get something done within the next week or 2. Here is our graph for our weekly results to date. Net gain and loss by dollar amount. So obviously we got pretty much back to even at week 4. Dug ourselves a little bit of a hole during last week. But now our goal is to climb right out of it, which I'm confident that we'll be able to do. All right, let's talk about trends here for a sec. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this given my personal time constraint, but the big thing that I want to highlight, home teams, home teams, home teams. on a ridiculous run right now. They were 6-1 last week, both straight up and against the spread. On the season, on the money line, the home team has won 2/3 of the time, and against the spread, they have covered over 70% of the time. So historically, we've seen that average hover around 55% against the spread. So home spread is definitely on a crazy heater right now. So if you were to pick one bet type from basically every game and try to test your luck on that, you'd have a pretty good shot at getting at least 4, maybe 5 wins. Overs also on a pretty nice run too, especially in the past 2 weeks. 10-2 is the record in the IFL to the over in the past 12 games. Average in those games, 94 points per game. So is that point scoring surge something that is going to continue as the season wears along here? Or are those defenses going to find that one or two things that allow them to catch up? And perhaps the more pressing question, how big is that shift in over-unders that the bookmakers set if that rampant offense continues to go unchecked? So those are some of the headliners of fascinating trends across the league. And going team by team, as you can see, we don't have a whole heck of a lot of perfect streaks left. San Antonio, the only team with all three of their spread, over-under, and money line records one-sided so far. In fact, the Gunslingers are the only team to not have had a game go over yet on the season. Also the only team that has failed to cover, although granted, they've only played 2 games so far, whereas most of the rest of the group has had 3 or maybe even 4. So again, we're going to kind of use these, see if within the next couple weeks any of these transpire to like 4-1, 5-1, to see where there might be value here and where we might want to fade some things as well. Because even though something is so lopsided, you still got to put that little bit of thought into it in determining if it's sustainable for that upcoming selection. Here are our results by team. San Diego remains pretty much the bane of my existence. In their past 19 regular season games, I've only won 4 of their bets. So a little disheartening on that front. We're still looking for our first win on a Jacksonville Shark bet as well. But everybody else, we've gotten at least 2 picks correct. Again, our goal for this is to bring as many teams as possible to at least 7 wins on our bets this season. And this will also help us shape our future picks as well in terms of maybe hitting some wagers that we haven't hit yet, or maybe going away from something that we've, by design or otherwise, have kind of defaulted to. Think of Fisher's over-unders. We've picked the over-under on all 4 of their games this season. Do I make it a 5th? We'll find out in a bit. All right, weekly disclaimer time. Lines and odds today are going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook. This is mainly an analysis piece. It's not meant as betting advice or anything along those lines. This is purely meant for fun, curiosity, and even more fun. So there's no such thing as a guarantee or a lock in the sports wagering world. So tread those waters lightly. If you are going to try your luck and tail or fade my bets, you're more than welcome to do so, but please gamble responsibly. Practice safe gaming habits. That includes setting a budget in terms of both time and money. Risk only what you can afford to lose. And if you feel like you or a loved one is having issues with potential problem gaming, there's a lot of resources online and issued by your individual state, perhaps, that offer assistance in that matter. So haveagameplan.org, responsibleplay.org, websites like that are great resources, highly recommended for those that might be teetering on a potential addiction. So know that help is out there and you are not alone if you're feeling kind of on that edge. Okay, Another 7-game slate awaits us. Let's go get our redemption. It's time for the big board. All right, we have 2 games tonight, one of which kicks off in just over an hour. The Orlando Pirates, the league's only undefeated team at this point in the season, they are going to Jacksonville to take on the Sharks in Jacksonville's home opener. Not much respect here for that undefeated Pirate side, though. They are 2.5 underdogs against the Jacksonville Sharks. The over-under is set at 89.5. On the money line, Orlando plus 120 and Jacksonville minus 142. This is going to be a very fascinating game in a rivalry that is rather underrated and has had several chapters jotted down in it. The 2 teams started as rivals in the National Arena League, where they played against each other for a couple seasons in 2018 and 2019. The rivalry would be put on hiatus for 5 years until both the Pirates and the Sharks became members of the Indoor Football League, where they obviously have been since. Tonight's game will be what I'm tabbing as the first ever fight for Florida. So let's talk about the Pirates here a little bit. They're obviously 3-0. The biggest pinpoint thing that you could look at if you're maybe a bit of a naysayer is saying, okay, they've won 3 games, but they've only been by a combined 12 points. And that defense has been super leaky, very untraditional when looking at the history of that Orlando/Massachusetts defense, which has in the past been one of their strongest points as a franchise. So they're kind of mirroring their 2023 ways a little bit, where the offense is just humming along. Paxton DeLaurent looking like an early candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, if he keeps it up, he's going to probably earn some MVP discussion if he keeps it up with the way that he's been able to spread the ball around. Puka Williams has done more as a pass catcher than a rusher the past couple weeks. But you also got Naquan Murray, Thomas Owens, Tio Redding, where you can't take an eye off any of those 4 guys. One big departure for Orlando, however, is Dante Wright signing with the CFL with the Calgary Stampeders. So the man who has taken 3 kicks back for touchdowns for Orlando is going north of the border, which honestly might be an opportunity for Puka Williams to kind of restore a little bit of that confidence. If he does take that kick returning role, get him the ball in his hands and let him work a little bit of that Puka magic. So the Pirates looking to continue their hot ways against the Jacksonville Sharks. They have scored 43 and 47 points in their 2 games so far. Very healthy offensive production under new quarterback James Cahoon. The return of Jimmy Robinson as a rusher and a receiver has been an absolute godsend for this Jacksonville team. Robinson, of course, will be going up against the team that he won consecutive rushing titles with the Pirates franchise in their time in Massachusetts. On the receiving side, you've also got Marquel Wade, Red Douglas, Jaden Stoshak, Lowell Patron. There's no shortage of weapons in that Jacksonville offense, and through 2 games, they've proven, hey, this team has a pretty sizable ceiling. In fact, both teams coming into this game with top 5 offensive efficiencies on a per 10 possession basis. And my pick for this game, I thought long and hard about this. I mean, it's tough. But I'm going to go with Jacksonville here on the money line. And this, to me, is just a matter of riding that insane hot stretch that home teams have been on right now. For Orlando, this is still a franchise that has not had the best success in covering on the road, though it should be noted that of their 7 covers on the road in their past 3 years, 2 of them have come against Jacksonville. They're the only active IFL team against whom the Pirates have covered on the road more than once. So there's a little bit of a matchup discrepancy there. The Pirates have also taken 4 out of 5 in this series at the IFL level. They took 2 of 3 last year and swept in 2024, which was Jacksonville's first season in the Indoor Football League. But in the end, I think getting the home crowd for the first time after a couple games out in the Southwestern Desert is going to make a pretty profound impact in terms of getting Jacksonville an all-important win in the Eastern Conference. This is also Jacksonville's first in-conference game of the season. They are the last team in the IFL to actually play an in-conference game. So I'm looking for this game to be super close. I'd be a little bit surprised if the margin of the lead is any more than 2 possessions by either team in this one. But yeah, let's see if a league heck bent on parity gets a little bit of what they want and say, all right, it's week 6, everybody is lost. If Jacksonville can pull it off in about an hour's time, that will in fact be the case. Our second game of the night pits Quad City at San Diego. This was the IFL championship game matchup that I had predicted in my preseason piece. And for the Strike Force at home, they are dogs by 3 and the hook. Notice the slight difference in odds there. The over-under is 84.5, Quad City minus 166, and San Diego plus 140. Both teams are coming off wins, although the impressiveness of those wins were by varying degrees. In the case of the visiting Steamwheelers, their last game, a win by 15 points at home against the previously undefeated Green Bay Blizzard. So we once again saw what exactly the ceiling is of this Quad City team when they've got their offense and defense simultaneously cooking with one another. The story of Quad City's offense with Daquan Neal, a lot more balance and a little bit less reliance on Keon Williams, who is a tremendous player in his own right, but you get him support with respectable forces on the outside as well, with Kevin Rudd and Jordan Vesey. You get those guys involved. Keon gets open for some one-on-ones. The blueprint right there is for Quad City to remain as dangerous of an offensive team as there is in the IFL. And putting up 50 points against a very strong Green Bay defense last week is a telltale sign of that. As for San Diego, they put up 48 in their win against Tucson last week, even though they got up by 21, saw that lead shrink all the way down to 0. In fact, there was a 1-point deficit at the late stages of the game. But the Strike Force recovered, ended up getting the win, and now they are back home for what is their first matchup against the Steamwheelers in over 3 years. That game taking place week 2 of 2023, Quad City taking the win by a score of 49-47. So my pick for this game, I'm going to go with the home dog. Home dog out right here at San Diego, plus 140. I see this as tremendous value in a game that should be a very hotly contested game right from the jump. The thing that I worry about a little bit with San Diego is they've been a little bit turnover happy on offense. They did give the ball away 4 times in that win against Tucson, so they're obviously going to have to clean that up against this Quad City defense that can make the explosive play on defense as we've seen them do before and various points in the early stages of this year. I just really, really, really do like the value here for the team that I predicted in the preseason to go on and win the IFL championship. So we kind of faded them last week. We're going to go back to them this week and see if they can pull off a plus 140 upset special. So San Diego, plus 140 on the money line. Our Saturday slate is a triple header Two simultaneous games going on at 5 o'clock each. The first one that we'll go over, the Iowa Barnstormers at the Green Bay Blizzard. The Blizzard are back home after that first loss of the season. They are favored by 13.5. Over-under is 93.5. On the money line, Iowa's plus 360, Green Bay minus 470. For the Iowa Barnstormers, they are looking for simply any strand of consistent play that they can get to, at the very least, stay competitive. They were unable to find it in their blowout loss to Fishers on what was Saturday night, I believe. But yeah, the sledding gets no easier for the Barnstormers, especially defensively. Going up against a Liam Thompson-led Green Bay Blizzard side, that feels like they left some meat on the bone, especially in the first half in their loss to Quad City last week. Yeah, it's these games between Green Bay and Iowa are always fascinating. Just look at the game a couple weeks ago as a primary example of that. So you can't really say that there's a definitive bet on this board, but I am going to do my best to assert one here anyways. And for those of you who've been following along for any stretch of time, anytime Green Bay is at home, the spread bet is probably going to default here as my preferred choice. Green Bay, in the IFL betting era, is covering at a 75% clip at the Resch Center. A ridiculous efficiency that is easily the top rate in the Indoor Football League. They already have 2 covers at home this season, both against formidable opponents in Vegas and Fishers. And right now, against an Iowa team that is not really in the best position in terms of opportunities to build confidence, this could get out of hand pretty early. The other thing that I absolutely love about this is we are below the key number of 14. So 14-point win does the job for us. I honestly think Green Bay, on a relatively average day, can put together a win here going into the 20s, maybe even more, as long as Thompson and crew take care of the ball for the green and white. And this is my mortal Megamax of the week, by the way, at Green Bay, minus 13.5. The other 5 o'clock Saturday game sees the Vegas Nighthawks, defending champs, on a 2-game win streak on the road. They are going to San Antonio to play the Gunslingers. At home, the Guns are 10.5-point dogs. The over-under is 84.5. Vegas minus 340 money line. San Antonio plus 270. The biggest story here for me is the chasm in disparity in both offenses leading up to this game. Vegas, they have put up close to 60 points per game in their 2 wins. The dynamic that they have with guys like Josh Tomas, Quentin Randolph, Phoenix Sproles, McKee getting involved early and often as well. They just look absolutely fantastic right now. I do believe that they will be tested here a little bit, though, against the Gunslingers defense, which rather quietly has done an impressive job against 2 very solid on-paper opponents, holding Tulsa to 29 and Arizona to 44 whilst forcing, I believe, 2 or 3 takeaways. So the defensive side for San Antonio is absolutely no slouch. But it's been the offense that has been a little bit of a puzzle for head coach Jonathan Bain and quarterback Joaquin Collazo to try and figure out. There are good pieces there. Deion Cook at the running back spot, Austin Upshaw and Deion McShane as a couple really good receivers. The key is just going to be stringing together plays that result in touchdown drives. The reality of the fact is that process is a bit more fluid for some teams than it is for others right now. This game is actually a really nice example of where different trends can sometimes clash. So far, when an underdog has been at home and set as the underdog by double digits, the dogs have actually covered in 70% of those games with a record of 28-12. Where my antithesis comes in to kind of go against that grain of logic is that the Gunslingers have actually not been a great team covering at home. They entered this season actually as one of two franchises to actually be below 500 at home against the spread. Oddly enough, it's actually the Vegas Nighthawks that are the other one. But where Vegas has been a little bit light in ATS home record, they have more than made up for it as a powerhouse on the road going up against the number. The second best cover percentage as the visitors in the IFL, trailing only San Diego, and they are the pick that I am going to back for this one. To me, this game just screams, how much can Vegas outscore San Antonio? If you believe that the Gunslingers are going to put up 31 points in this game, all you need from Vegas is 6 touchdowns. And they've spent the past couple of wins averaging basically 8 or 9 touchdowns on a per game basis. So you just got to hope for a strong start for the Nighthawks to stay ahead convincingly and to avoid maybe getting into a backdoor cover territory, because I think that's probably the most likely outcome for this bet to lose, is if the Gunslingers get a touchdown, they make it an 8-point game, and huzzah, huzzah. But it's very, very tough to go against the Nighthawks right now, even at this number as road favorites. So give me the defending champs to make it a third straight win in brilliant fashion. Our 8 o'clock game on Saturday will see the Fishers Freight on the road. They'll take 2 consecutive 63-point games on the road to take on the Tulsa Oilers. At home, Tulsa is 5.5-point dogs. This is their home opener, by the way. The over-under is 87.5. On the money line, Fishers is minus 192, and Tulsa is plus 160. And honestly, what can you say about the Fishers Freight that hasn't already been said? They have put together one of the more impressive 2-game stretches in the IFL in recent memory. Just dominations of Arizona and Iowa where they combined for 126 points. Granted, they did a lot of that damage with their ground game. So now that they've basically let the league know that this is how we are going to attack you, deal with it. We'll have to see if the Oilers defense can kind of recover after giving up 61 against Orlando last week to try to give their offense a fighting chance to kind of get the upper hand in this one a little bit. That passing game for Tulsa last week was incredible with TJ Edwards, Jerminic Smith, Spencer Tiers, Trip Harrington getting involved as well. Basically, for both these teams, there's been a lot of offense to be had over the course of the past 2 weeks. Probably the 2 leading figures in offensive capabilities in that span. As much as I love Tulsa on both their spread and their money line here, I think both present exceptional value at those numbers. We're going to ride this over streak. I'm going to ride the over here, 87 in the hook. Fishers, if you look at their games, the lowest point total that they've come up with is 41. Tulsa obviously had that first game, a little bit of a hiccup offensively, though they still managed to win in that outing. But I think this is going to be an old-fashioned shootout here. Both teams have very different styles in terms of kind of how they've had success so far. Fishers has been a lot of run. Tulsa kind of established that passing game last week, so we're going to have to see how that dynamic shakes out. But I do love where they're going right now. And I like both of their ceilings in their matchup against each other here. So Fishers and Tulsa over 87.5, and that'll be the closing bet for Saturday. Our Sunday slate begins in Prescott Valley, our second in-state rivalry of the week. This time within the Sun Devil State, the Arizona Rattlers and the Northern Arizona Wranglers. This game sees Arizona favored by 9.5. The over-under is 87.5. Money line, Arizona minus 305, and the Wranglers at plus 245. For the Rattlers, this is an opportunity to make a statement against a local rival, prop themselves up to 3-1 on the season, keep the pace for that top record out in the West. For the Wranglers, it's an opportunity for them to maybe shock some people, grab that first win against a quality opponent, and kind of bridge that divide in the standings in the process. The Rattlers have had their fair share of struggles offensively the past couple games. But even amidst some of those turnovers and empty possessions that they've had, Max Myler and company have still put up at least 42 points in all three of their games so far. So worst case scenario, you're getting a very solid floor with that Arizona Rattler offense. With the capability of popping off big play after big play, in the same way that Myler did in last season's run with the Green Bay Blizzard. That Arizona defense, we've seen their ups and their downs, and they're going to look for another one of those spike games against a Northern Arizona team that has a lot of questions offensively, particularly at the quarterback position. So will a change be made there? Do they ride it out with Ramon Atkins-Frazier? We're going to have to see how that situation plays out, the decision that head coach Ron James makes there. My pick for this game leans on our strength so far of betting favorites on the spread. And I am going to keep that the same here with Arizona at that 9.5 number. So basically, looking for any sort of double-digit win in any capacity, whether we get 42-32 or 57-40. Doesn't really matter how we get to double digits, just as long as we're there and Arizona's on top. Our bet here would wind up becoming a winner. I just have my concerns about Northern Arizona's offense able to keep up. Defensively, they've got some pretty impressive pieces with Traveris Farrell and Davey Agabor. But we have still yet to see that translate into, those splash plays on the defense, those interceptions, fumble recoveries, things of that nature. Those could happen if Arizona is a little bit loosey-goosey with the football. But again, I think this is an opportunity for Arizona to kind of shore up on those things. And I'd feel safe in saying if they play a clean game and don't turn the ball over at all, that this bet would probably see its way to the cashier. So give us Arizona for a win of 10 or more against their local rivals in Northern Arizona. And that will bring us to our final game of the week. New Mexico on the road for the first time as visitors. They get a second crack against the Tucson Sugar Skulls after the two teams met a couple weeks ago in Albuquerque, with Tucson pulling out that close result, winning by 5. In this game, the Sugar Skulls are a 1.5 favorite. The over-under is 87.5. The money line sees the Chupacabras paying even money, and the Sugar Skulls minus 120. This is a fascinating game, another one of those early season rematches, so similar to what Iowa and Green Bay are going to put together for us on Saturday night. But this is going to be a very interesting game against two opponents that, as indicated here, fairly evenly matched. Jerome Johnson has been every bit as advertised for the Chupacabras. The offense has looked really good, with Damon Street and LaJames White, C.J. Jefferson handling the load there. making the majority of plays for Coach Kyle Moore Brown's offense. If anything, the only real complaint that you have with New Mexico is a bit of a shaky offensive line and a tendency the past few games where snaps have gone a little bit high when the Chupacabras have operated out of the gun. So is that something that gets cleaned up a little bit as the season progresses? Do we see pretty much an immediate cleanup in this game? We'll have to see how it goes. The Chupacabra defense, led by Maurice Jackson on the line and Gregory Dent in the secondary. Also, smooth sailing for them as well. Haven't lit up the world on defense, but they also haven't been a complete liability there either. So if you're New Mexico, it's a 1-2 start, but everything has looked reasonably solid. Not too shabby for a team that, for all intents and purposes, is just a few games old. As for the Sugar Skulls, they've had a couple tough losses go against them. Their lone win did come against New Mexico, as we said a couple weeks back. Draylon Ellis at the quarterback position. He's shown the ability to make splash plays. Tucson has played at a pretty high tempo this season, leading the league in average number of possessions on a per-game basis, where they're pretty much just looking to engage teams in shootouts. In fact, the Chupacabras and Sugar Skulls are two of the 3 teams in the league that are a perfect 3-0 to the over. Is that the pick that I make here? It is not. But I'm actually going to lean on another very wacky stat about the Sugar Skulls. They are made the favorites here, and they're at home. Normally, that combination should be great, but for the Sugar Skulls, it's been the exact opposite. They have gone just 2-8 against the spread as home favorites. So we are going to lean on that little system there. We are active on the New Mexico Chupacabras, and we will take that 1.5 to give us a little bit of a departure from all of our money line bets involving the Chupacabras so far this season. So strangely enough, it's actually our 4th straight week, I believe, making New Mexico our choice on this game. I very much do like the direction that they're headed. They do have a few hurdles to climb in order to get where I think they can be, but they're certainly on the right track. And for Tucson, this is a great opportunity to kind of rewrite some of that down history in terms of perhaps underperforming a little bit from the betting perspective when they've been at home. But this is going to be a great weight game either way. Probably going to go right down to the wire. So let's take a stab at the Chupacabras and see if we feast at plus 1.5. Okie dokie. It is parlay time. So 3 picks. Let's spread them out across each of the 3 days and see where it takes us. Pick number 1, a little bit of an against the grainer. I'm going to go Orlando Jacksonville under 89.5. And this is, for a lot of the system players out there, another system play. And a perfect one at that as well. Orlando, well, I'll say this. The Pirates and the Sharks have played against each other 5 times at the IFL level. All 5 of their games cashed the under. And none of those 5 games exceeded 80 points. So that could be something to look to in terms of a potential matchup. Maybe we get a game script where both offenses kind of try to play keep away with each other, knowing how strong they are in comparison to the rest of the league. So we could see tempo. We could see both one or both defenses kind of step up and make some plays here and there. We do have a couple of very talented quarterbacks that are a little bit turnover prone, so we'll have to see if either team can capitalize on that. But we had a perfect system play that we unfortunately didn't do. I think it was the second week of the season with Wranglers unders against the Eastern Conference. We're going to go more faithfully to a 5-0 all-time streak here and make Orlando Jacksonville under our opening play. I will pair that up with a pick from the Fishers Tulsa game. Let's go with the home underdogs. Home underdogs, home underdogs, home underdogs. They've covered 70% of the time so far in the 2026 season. Let's see if Tulsa can respect our coin and add to that once again. In fact, the Oilers in their past 9 home games, they have won 7 of them outright, covering in 6, while the Fishers Freight on the road, not particularly great against the spread. Lifetime, I believe they are 3-6 against the spread outside of Fishers Event Center. I feel like a bunch of the naysayers are going to expect some sort of drop-off in some capacity. After all, scoring touchdowns on every single possession that you have is pretty much a statistical improbability. But yeah, this pick is all about Tulsa kind of getting the go-ahead here, forcing Fishers to play from behind a little bit, maybe making Felix Harper a little bit more aggressive as a passer, and maybe taking advantage of some opportunities there on the defensive side. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be great. And I think Tulsa is going to have a bit of a bone to pick with the Freight as well, who ended up sweeping the 2-game series against Tulsa a season ago. So hard to beat the same team 3 times in a row. So we'll see if Tulsa kind of keeps consistent with that theory. Our third pick here, we're going to go again to a couple of streaks that are perfect here. We had mentioned New Mexico and Tucson, both 3-0 to the over. Let's see if we can't select our way to them being 4-0 to the over. I do think this is going to be a little bit closer than a bit close for comfort, I will say. However, Tucson Arena has transformed into an absolute shootout gallery, which a year ago would have been mind-blowing for me, because we had that insane understreak at games in Tucson from, I think, like 2023 to the first couple weeks of 2025. But believe it or not, in the past 6 games at Tucson, those games have averaged about 97 points per game. The Sugar Skulls in their few games this season, their games have averaged 94 points per game. This is a team that likes to play with tempo. I feel like they'll be able to kind of stick with that on the friendly confines of home turf. And if they get off to a hot start, New Mexico is maybe forced to catch up, or maybe it's vice versa. It sets up as a really good rematch where both teams do have some familiarity with each other. So that is going to be my 3-leg parlay this week. $10 wager on a plus 595 bet would pay $69.57. And again, still looking for that first win. Let's hold out hope that this one is green. So to recap, Friday's pick, Orlando Jacksonville under 89.5. Saturday's pick, Tulsa covering as 5.5-point dogs, hosting the Fishers Freight. And Sunday's pick, New Mexico, Tucson, staying perfect to the over and ripping clear of 87.5 to get us a near 6-1 payout. And with all that said, that is going to wrap it up for this week's version of Wager Wednesday. Again, we have the Jacksonville Sharks hosting the Orlando Pirates. That kickoff is in half an hour, so be sure to check that out. It is on overnight. And with all that, if you're going to be putting some bets out there this week, I wish you the very best of luck. And as always, I'll see you at the cashier. Enjoy the games this week, everyone.